tuned into Poppitt's Corner.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Poppitt's Corner. This is going to be a happy occasion, I would say. I'm going to make this as a happy of occasion as I possibly can, due to the circumstances that have transpired. We lost somebody very special for me. I'm still trying to recover from it. It's really hard for me just because of the tremendous influence and opportunities that this man provided for me. And I just want to do a celebration. I know Bob Nalbandian we lost last week, and I haven't really had the opportunity to say my thoughts, tell some fun stories, and celebrate the man's legacy. Because I know he would not want us, or any of us, to be sad or to even, talk about his unfortunate, circumstance that transpired. He would want us to celebrate his life and his legacy and what he brought to this world, which, in my opinion, will never be repaid. I'm going to do the best I can here, and hopefully you guys are willing and ready to just hear some fun Bob stories, and take the ride with me today and celebrate a true underground legend, in my opinion. Legend gets thrown a lot. I know I'm guilty of using it a lot on the show here, but to me, all of the players that came before me and the players that are coming up with me are soon to be legends and soon to and are legends, in my opinion. Without the old guard, there is no new guard, and the new guard has to rise up and be just like what the old guard was for the next generation after us. So we're trying to do that here, and it's with these people's legacies that they brought to this world, like Bob Nalbandian's. That's the reason why we do what we do. It's a reminder that it's going to take all of us, and it's going to take that one person that can change a whole group of people's lives for the better. And Bob certainly did that for me personally. So here are my thoughts on this. I'm going to try not to make it about me. I'm going to try to make it about Bob and celebrate his life and legacy. So here we go. So I first found out about Bob through the Classic Metal Show, who obviously I'm eternally honored and blessed and grateful to call them my friends, call them my peers at this point. But I was a huge fan of the CMS, and still am too, for that matter. And Bob would come on the show all the time. I had not known who Bob Nalbandian was until the CMS, and he would come on, and man, the guy was just a ball buster and told great stories and had this huge history that I was fascinated to learn about just through the show, and later to come to find out he's been doing this even longer than the show's existence, and his podcast started around the same time as the CMS, Shockwave Skull Sessions, which he was doing with for Roadrunner, I believe, and in the recent years he's been doing it with Matt Hartnett, who I was honored to talk with and have him on the podcast. And I had Bob on a couple times as well, and I was just really fascinated with Bob's overall delivery and knowledge of the overall music community and metal community especially. The way he would articulate his stories is fucking awesome. I learned so much just from that aspect of Bob, and I don't know if I ever told him that. But to me, he was the best storyteller. I think his knowledge and his detailed knowledge of the past and documenting that, and it was just second to none. That's the biggest influence that I took from Bob, was structuring and remembering details and presenting it in a way that makes sense to the average listener who has no idea what any of us are talking about. It's kind of like you gotta have to go back to the basics, and Bob was the master for me personally at that. His questions are just some of the greatest of all time, in my opinion, and to get the kind of knowledge from his guests, that takes a lot of skill that I don't think a lot of people realize. And when I would listen to the Shockwave Skull sessions with Matt and Bob, that's what Bob in particularly brought. That just, it was just so easy sounding. It was just, they say the masters always make everything out to be the easiest possible. So exactly when somebody is a master at their craft, when they can make it just so effortlessly and so easy to do. That Bob was certainly the master at that for me. And in the coming months of discovering, the Shockwave Skull sessions and the CMS I was just a big fan of, and this is right around the time I would say 2019, 2018, 2020, somewhere in there. I think 2018, 2019. I reached out to Matt Hartnett, just to tell him I was a big fan of the show. I was thinking about doing a podcast as well, and I wanted to learn more on how they did their audio and video stuff, and Matt was gracious enough to teach me the ropes and give me a lot of great information. So I owe a lot to Matt as well. But where I'm going with this is Matt and Bob, to me, are two of the best to ever do this line of work in podcasting and interviewing, along with Chris Aiken and Neely, of course, here. So fast forward, I had already met Matt through, we kind of talked. I haven't met Matt in person, but we were just discussing some things, and I had told him I was a big fan of Bob Nalbandian's, and hopefully one day I could get the opportunity to interview him, and one thing led to another, where I was doing Razor Radio at the time with Andy Ford, and we were doing a show at the now defunct Slide Bar with Master was actually headlining the show, and it was a free show at the Slide Bar, and we kind of had carte blanche to do live broadcasting from that place and helps promote it, whether they liked it or not. That's what we had, so it was awesome to do that. And I was bugging Andy a lot. I was saying, hey, bring Bob Nalbandian. I want to meet Bob Nalbandian, because I was just such a fan of the documentaries that he did, the podcast, his line of questioning, how he would formulate the conversation. I mean, all of that is just hugely influential to me. And I heard back from Andy. Andy reached out to Bob and said, hey, my co-host is a big fan. He would love to meet you and possibly, get a chance to talk with you. And Bob was in town, and he said, absolutely, I'll be there in about an hour, and I was freaking the fuck out, and I just so happened to get some of his DVDs and whatnot, and my particular favorite still to this day is the Band versus Brand, and I had brought this particular copy to the interview, and I asked Bob to sign it for me, and there it is right there. So this is definitely a keepsake. I mean, I will never get this again. And Bob did that for me as a fan of him and what he did for music and metal. This means a lot to me. So I had watched the Band vs. Brand. I was just studying everything Bob, and I got to interview him at the slide bar for the first time, and that just blew my mind. We kept in contact ever since, took photos, and right around that time, NAMM was going on, and thankfully, through Andy Ford, which I got to give a lot of credit to as well here, we got into NAMM because of the radio show, and Shauna, I got to give a shout out to her as well. They all played a part in us getting into NAMM that year. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit here. So immediately after that said interview that we did with Bob at the slide bar, I was telling him, hey, I play in a band called Madrost. I know, through our discussions, you were discussing the Bay Area Godfathers DVD that's coming out, the documentary. And if you need music, I'd be happy to lend, to have you use some of ours. It's, just for the exposure and the experience. And Bob was really appreciative to that. I gave him a copy of The Essence of Time, Matches No Flesh. And I heard back from Bob. And he goes, this is fucking amazing. I would like to use, and he chose No Future of all songs. And I was like, fuck yeah, use anything you want, Bob. It's all good. I'm just grateful that you like the music and want to support the band, and Bob really gave us opportunities like that nobody had given to us before or since, for that matter. And it was during the final stages of the Bay Area Godfathers where they needed music to be in the documentaries. And long story short here is I would I had heard, hey, we're screening the Bay Area Godfathers at NAMM. If you guys want to come and check it out, let me know. I'll get you tickets and passes and everything else in between. And there are times where people say those kinds of things and it just never ends up working out and never ends up happening. People don't follow through with the things they say. But Bob was not like that. Bob really took care of us. Bob really, he really looked out for anyone and everyone. I mean, I'm just a small fish. I was just blown away by this man's, not only his knowledge, but his expertise in the business all these years, and the fact that he would treat somebody like me the same as he would a Gene Hoglan or a Lars Ulrich, people that were his friends. I can't put into words what that means to me. And that's exactly why I'm here doing a solo show dedicated to the great Bob Nalbandian. And so we got invited to the premiere, and this is like 2020, and it was the documentary was going to be shown at the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame. Now, around this time, I had never been to something like this. The thing was fucking packed with musicians and celebrities and then, people like, media people like myself. And I had asked Andy Ford and Shauna and my dad to to come with me and help support me through this event and just be there for me. And because this was a big deal. Madras had made a documentary, like, with our music. That's fucking huge, Even if it was only, this much, it's this much in my opinion, because I can never repay that. We're in it and we're here to stay in another medium that isn't just on a record or vinyl or digital or any of that kind of stuff. We're in a documentary that's about, Bay Area thrash metal bands that have influenced us greatly. I mean, it's fucking mind-blowing that it all just comes full circle here. So Bob really gave us a tremendous opportunity. And I remember sitting at the booth when it was all these celebrities and, everyone was going to get, their Heavy Metal Hall of Fame awards, like Metal Church and whatnot. And so the documentary starts. It's a little late in the programming here. I guess they had some delay. And they only showed about, I think, like half of the movie. Well, in the first, 10 minutes, our song is clearly being played through the loudspeakers, and I turned to Andy and my dad and Shauna, and I'm like, holy shit, I fucking hear it. It's there. And it just blew my mind. It was shown in the background of Eric Peterson talking about, whatever he was talking about at the time. I don't know the specific conversation, but, that meant a lot to me. Was hearing Madras in the background of Eric Peterson of Testament, of all people, talking about metal. Fucking amazing. That meant so much to me. And immediately after this, I asked Bob, obviously I gave him my thanks, and it was just so great to be a part of that. And I had asked him, hey, would you be interested in, coming on my podcast and giving me the opportunity to interview you, because you've been such a big inspiration on me starting a podcast. And he was like, fuck yeah, I'd love to do that. And that's just the kind of person Bob was. He gave everybody opportunities that others would not have done. So we did the interview. I'm going to post it up probably next week or the week after. It's going to be a whole month of Bob, so you're going to, you guys are not going to get sick of Bob Nalbandian. He's here to stay on this show, and he will never leave. He's always going to be a part of Poppitt's Corner and pretty much any radio type of shows that I am a part of. Bob's influence it'll never leave. That's how much to me, he meant. And again, he did something that not a lot of people would do in his position, and that was give everybody opportunities. And I mean, that's just the kind of guy that Bob was, so thank you so much, Bob Nalbandian, for that. So fast forward here, we're at NAMM. The premiere happens. The next day, we're walking around, and I text Bob, hey, I would love to do another interview with you. I'm at the NAMM booth, whatever. Why don't you stop by? And Neely was with him, and so I got to hang out with Bob, hang out with Neely for a few, and interview them both, and just some great times, man. That was. I'm sad that it'll never happen again, but at least, with what we did accomplish, I'm grateful just to have that and be able to further that man's legacy and celebrate his life, because Bob was truly one of a kind. And the fact that I'm owning something that I am a part of, and it's no matter how big or small, this means a lot to me, and the fact that I will never see my friend, and I consider him a brother, a good friend of mine, is very heartbreaking. So I'm going to try not to leave on a sad note here, but I hope you guys enjoy those stories of Bob and and continue to listen to everything on Poppitt's Corner and, of course, the CMS network. And Bob will not be forgotten. So with that in mind, I want to say a big ol' hails to you, Bob Nalbandian, and I will see you in the near future. And thank you so much for all that you gave to this community, man. It'll never be repaid. So here's to you, Bob. Now for another episode of Poppitt's Corner, guys, I'm out of here. Cheers.